Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on these knives, and as you can see, it's a pretty special trio of knives here. And first of all, before I get into anything about the knives or the video or anything, I want to say a huge thank you to Keith, who sent these knives for me to check out, as well as a small Sabenza. And it's really, it's not something I could really have ever expected or anticipated, being able to check out such cool knives here, especially all at once, and just because someone wanted to, give me the opportunity. So I really want to thank Keith for sending these knives for me to check out. There's some knives in particular, the presidential, that I really have wanted to check out, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I really appreciate it. Getting to see knives like this is one of the things that made me want to start Knife Thoughts, is being able to share the knives that I get with people who might not be able to see them. So when someone is willing to share a knife with me that I haven't been able to see, I really appreciate it. So again, thank you to Keith for sending these three beautiful Northwoods knives for me to check out, and for allowing me to share them with all of you. So I know I've already said it a bunch of times, but one more time, thank you to Keith. I really do genuinely appreciate it. And so I've got three Mammoth Ivory Northwoods knives, and really three of the more sought after, the more kind of not necessarily rare, but these are rare examples because they're in the Mammoth Ivory, but just the ones that people really are into, I guess I should say. And so Keith sent along some descriptions that actually came from the person he bought these knives from. And so, if you want to pause the video here and read these descriptions, you can. There's no real identifying information or anything here. So you can read through those, and they're definitely good descriptions of these knives. I'm going to start with the Fremont. So the Fremont is a Wharncliffe jack, so it's a sleeve board jack. And you can see this one has the original price here, $230. Knife Ship Free is always pretty reasonable with the prices on these. They haven't really changed a whole lot since these knives came out. I think that the most recent knife, Northwoods, that I got in Mammoth Ivory was the Heritage Jack, which I have right here, and I think it was maybe $240 or maybe $260 or something like that. But this is a Fremont, and it's $230. I'm trying to be real careful with these bags because they're not quite as sturdy as the tubes that GEC knives normally come in. And I considered doing the whole gloves thing for this video, but I'm just going to make sure that they are, cleaned off nicely. I'm not much of a glove wearer when it comes to handling knives. So, but this is a sleeve board jack, like I said, if you haven't seen the Fremont. So it's got a larger end here, a smaller end. Both ends are rounded. GEC does have a pattern that's kind of correlates with the Fremont. And to be completely honest, I believe it's the 79. Yeah, 79, because it's the reverse of the 78. So if I'm wrong on that, by all means, let me know in the comments. But this is done differently than the GEC version because it has this really cool Northwoods blade. And so you can see it is a Wharncliffe. These are all mint, like brand new. The Wharncliffe, the Northwoods blades, if you're not familiar with Northwoods, they have this, what you might call brute de forge, if that's how you pronounce it, finish, where it has the kind of scales and the coloration from the heat treat left over. And then the stamped Northwoods, which I love. I wish GEC still used stamped blades. The one thing with Northwoods is they don't stamp the year. It's just stamped USA. So it doesn't make it quite as apparent right away which year, which run these are from. But these are older iterations. So the main thing with this Fremont that's kind of called out in the description here is that the covers on this match really nicely. So you can see you've got these really cool lines on both sides. You have not only the lines, but also a nice caramel color within those lines that I think looks really great. And there can be a lot of variation in Mammoth ivory. Sometimes it's super dark and scaly, sometimes it's pretty light. Again, this is pretty light. It does get lighter than this, but that's pretty light. But this is a really kind of nice medium ground where it has some lightness at the hafting, at the bolsters here, but then these really cool lines. Honestly, to me, it looks like bark ivory. So, you know, bark elephant ivory. This looks like bark, but it's mammoth. So really, really beautiful. I want to try to show you that nice and up close with some good focusing, so you can see that. The other thing on this knife is the action is super nice. I don't know if it has been, you know, open and closed a bunch and oiled and such. I haven't done anything to these, but it is very nice. I find sometimes that Northwoods, because they do have this finish, come with a little bit rougher action than some GECs. And some GECs also come with rougher action. They need fleshed out. But this one is really nice. And also the tip sits well within the frame here, which, you know, if you watch my videos, I am not a fan of proud tips, and GEC knives tend to have them relatively frequently. So just a beautifully made knife. You know, I think that the Keith bought these for not the retail price, obviously, but you know, I think it's a real kind of gem here with this beautiful mammoth ivory. So that's the Fremont, and I'm gonna kind of set these off to the side here. Then I wanted to show you this knife, which is the Madison Barlow clip point. And so this is in mammoth ivory also, like all of these. Now the interesting thing, first of all, this was also $230. You know, great price at the time or now, but this is number XX. So these Northwoods knives are numbered. They're not serialized, but they're numbered. And that's kind of how they differentiate them on the website. You know, each one has individual pictures. And then also it's on this sticker. This one is XX, which is interesting. I'm not 100% sure why that is, but let's get the knife open here. Again, I've been trying to open these bags really gently because I've actually ripped some of my Northwoods bags before. But look at this beautiful big curved Barlow. So if you watch my videos, you know I love Barlows. I started the Barlow Bearcat Club, which is you know, an online club for Barlow enthusiasts. So if you are a Barlow enthusiast, I highly suggest checking it out. But a curved Barlow is relatively unusual. Most Barlows are regular jacks, but there are curved Barlows, you know, vintage curved Barlows, and the Madison Barlow is a great example of that. It's a large curved Barlow. I would say it's a curved granddaddy Barlow. So it's kind of two unusual things here. Now, one thing that right up here mentioned is that there is a little machining mark on the bolster. So it's interesting, you know, it said that it came with this, and you do see things like this every now and then, but it's an interesting machining mark right there. But really shouldn't detract much from this knife because it is rare. They did only do the clip points the one time, as far as I'm aware, like the write-up said. They did drop points more, and I actually have a drop point that I was going to show you. And so this one is in elephant ivory. So this was given to my son by my brother, and it is one of those drop point Madison Barlows. So as that write-up mentions, this one doesn't have blade wrap, and this one unfortunately does. Now again, it's such a unique thing that it doesn't matter a whole lot, to be honest, but I think this will be a really special one for my son to have when he's older. So I wanted to show you the comparison. This is both a comparison for you between mammoth ivory and elephant ivory, and between the clip point and the drop point. Now, as I mentioned, some Mammoth ivory is pretty light in some sections. So you can see where this is hafted towards the bolster. It's pretty light. It doesn't look quite like the elephant ivory. This is really nice elephant ivory in my opinion, but it is pretty light. Now that said, when you go into the, kind of darker, the less hafted area, it is much darker. It's more of that caramel color. Another interesting thing is it seems like the stamping of the Northwoods arrowhead here on the bolster is a little bit deeper or wider than on this version. So just kind of a little interesting difference that I noticed. But again, no blade wrap on this clip point, and there is on this one. You can probably kind of see it right there. But just a kind of interesting comparison between the two. And again, beautiful Mammoth ivory, very thick. Again, I believe the write-up mentions that it is thick Mammoth ivory, which is pretty unusual. It's normally kind of pretty uniform, so that's pretty cool. And a little barkier, as I mentioned when I was talking about the Fremont there. Some Mammoth ivory gets kind of barky, where you've got almost layers, like some has peeled off or something along those lines as it was aging. And that is the case here on this one. But very cool Mammoth ivory. I love the cut swedge with the nail nick in the swedge on these clip points. And you can see that it has Northwoods on the tang instead of on the blade because of that full grind. So a really beautiful Barlow. Just a great knife. I hope that Northwoods does these again, because honestly I'd like to have one for myself, but they haven't done them recently. So hopefully Northwoods will do the Madison Barlow again. But speaking of knives that they haven't done again, this Presidential is the one that I was really the most excited about. And when Keith first reached out to me, we were talking knives. He's got some beautiful stag knives also. He said that he would be happy to send some knives for me to check out. Really, my first thought was, man, I would be worried about making sure that they stay safe. You never know with the mail and everything like that. Hopefully, I'm gonna knock on wood here. Hopefully I'm not jinxing myself, but these are very rare, very sought after, very valuable knives, and I just worried about that. And especially on this, I saw that Keith had a Presidential. Now, the Presidential is a knife that Northwoods has only done once, and I don't really know why. I don't know if there's some reason that GEC hasn't done it again for them, or if it's something that Northwoods, it was originally Derek Bone, who unfortunately passed away. I'm gonna set these off to the side so they're not falling. Unexpectedly, and left it to Jay. I don't know if Jay hasn't done that again for any particular reason, but they have not done this Presidential again. They've only done it one time. And I remember very clearly the Presidential coming out, and I remember thinking, I should get that. It was a time when these Northwoods knives would go up, you had time to decide. And I know that, for people who are watching this who have come into GEC and Northwoods knives really in the last 4+ years, that seems, inconceivable that a Northwoods knife would sit on the shelf long enough that you could decide. But it was the case. And I remember this Presidential coming out. I was a college student, and I remember thinking, I wasn't real into two blades. I was more of a one blade person. I am still more of a one blade person. But I, remember thinking, I feel like I should get one of these, but then I decided not to. And I've kind of kicked myself for not getting one since then. But it's a pretty unique knife because, again, it is a two blade. So just some kind of oil on there. You've got this nice big spear point with this beautiful long cut swedge, even longer cut swedge on the back side. And then the secondary blade, you might notice I'm closing these a lot more gingerly than then I close my own knives. The secondary blade is this really cool Wharncliffe. So it's a great blade shape combination, and that's really, you know, even though I was not into two-bladed knives, it's really, I recall this blade shape combination being something that interested me, because you've got the nice belly on the spear point, and then you've got a nice straight edge on the Wharncliffe. It's got this really long swedge here all the way on the back, and then a kind of slight drawn swedge here on the front. A beautiful little Wharncliffe secondary that I don't know that GEC has used on anything else either, a secondary quite like this. So really cool blade shape combination, and also really cool kind of figuring in the sense that these are squared. So you can see it's kind of a square bevel along the edge, hafted square rather than rounded. And so it's kind of similar to the number 77 Washington Jack, I believe. Is that what the write-up said? But, you know, it's squared off and really gives it a slender profile. You can see how slender that is there. And it's a single spring knife. So you've got a full, you know, full-sized spear point blade on one side, and then you've got this really, you know, fair-sized secondary on the other end. So I really think it's a really cool knife, and one that I really wish that Northwoods would do again. I again, don't know why they haven't done it again. I actually don't think that I've asked Jay. I should just ask him. Maybe I'll, you know, edit the description if I get an answer on that, but I haven't asked yet. So, but again, beautiful Mammoth ivory on this. It's got some of those lines like on the Fremont, but a lot of kind of lighter coloring. You can see the same on the back here, and even a little bit of that bark look right here. So just a really beautiful knife, and one that I've always wanted to check out. I remember these, I think they came in a red bone that I was considering getting, and I do wish I had one of those. I think it would make a really nice kind of all-around user, and of course, being that they've only made these once, they are certainly rare, sought after. As the description said there, I don't know that I've ever seen one of these go for sale. Certainly not very often. So a really special one that I really am glad to have gotten to check out, and really appreciate Keith sending for me to check out. So again, I want to say one more thank you to Keith for sending these knives. I love getting to check out knives like this, and you know, really appreciate him trusting me with them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics, and make sure you subscribe to the newsletter via email there. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.